So what attracted me to Thomas Paine? I guess his work. I mean, I read his work when I was at university, which was here. But it was not anything I could share with my cohort or the people who were teaching me, because Thomas Paine on the whole was not well read in literature, English literature in this or any other university I was aware of. The importance of him seemed to me that he was an outsider, that he was passionate about certain principles to do with the rights of man and women, the abuses that men and women were put to habitually throughout their lives, being born into poverty and dying in poverty, the lack of medical help, the lack of insurance, the lack of all the things that constitute what we think of as a modern developed state. And reading that work is like reading a rehearsal for the 20th century in Britain. He's talking quite frequently about the welfare state. We need a state which supports its members, the people in the state. And without it, people will go on living miserable lives. Indeed, by the end of his life, the beginning of the 19th century, he is writing quite deliberately about a revolution that is required. Not an insurrection, not a political revolution, an insurrection, but a revolution in civilization. He says, in terms, and I'll probably read this passage later on, but he says in terms, if we're not prepared to do this, then to have this revolution in civilization, then people will continue forevermore to live in misery. And that will cause more problems for the rulers of that state than if they were to recognize the humanity of those they rule. Now that's 200 years ago, and if anybody wants to find all that written up, it's in Agrarian Justice. It was written about 1797 or 1798. The other thing that interested me about doing was that I'd already done one film. That's the other thing to say. You don't just work. You work in media. You work in forms. I'd come to some sort of tentative mastery of screenplay. I'd been working at it very hard for about 10 years. And it culminated in writing a film with Warren Beatty called Red. Actually, the initial title was Comrades. But Comrades was a bit too communist for Beatty. Reds, of course, which is a term of opprobrium in America, is a kind of gently ironic title, which I had no power over anyway, so I accepted it. But I would have preferred it to have been called Comrades, because Comrades deals with both the overt and over-political and over-political structure of the piece, and also the relationship of love and trust or whatever that existed between Beatty and Louise.
It is mine.
Paine, not Paine, no, John Reed and Louise Brown. So during the 80s, I started writing where it was possible to find commissions for this work. Movies. I wrote one about the ANC in South Africa. I did secret research there and brought it back and wrote it for Warner Brothers, who didn't want to do it. And that's just one of 4 or 5 or 6 films that I've written that haven't seen the light of day, haven't even been published. Very rare, in any case, for screenplays to be published. What else about Paine was important? Socialism. Where was it? When was it coming? When was class going to become a major operant force in the development of America and Europe? And I think Paine was an incredible harbinger of all the sorts of shifts that were going to begin in Britain, certainly, less so in France, but certainly in Britain, which would involve the Chartists and the whole Chartist movement. So that's where Paine comes from. And I've written now probably 4 full drafts. Had it published in '97. It's now taken on a life of its own, which has nothing to do with being a movie. It's been on the radio. It's going on the stage as a kind of music piece, music theatre. And ultimately, I think it will. Now, I have more confidence that it will ultimately become a movie. A 4-hour movie, that's one of the reasons it hasn't been made. When I wrote it, it was 5.5 hours. And I've been working for 10 years to get it down to 4.5 hours. And now this year, I'm going to get it down to 3 hours to put out at Shakespeare's Club. And if any of you are interested in it, just keep in touch with me and I'll let you know when it's there. It'll be next July, I hope, in time for the 200th the celebration of the 200th anniversary of Paine's death.